It had been another 15 minutes of getting a stern talking to by the Elder for breaking protocol and putting the base at risk because of primitives like me not seeing the consequences of my actions. After what felt like hours, Edie arrived, setting the base into a frenzy to get a good look at the unique machine. Everybody else had scrambled to get a good look at it, and here I was, trying to negotiate for the Steel Rangers' help. At least I had my Pip-Buck back. Look, if 42 is still alive, then we need to get the cloning machine before she does. Longbow tapped her forehoof on the table in an authoritative way as she spoke. The only problem is, with the fact that there is a staple door standing between us and it. As I talked, I looked over to the Elder, who almost seemed lost in thought. And, before it's suggested, we can't even leave it. She will find a way in, one way or another. I'd just rather beat her to it. It's a normal stable door, you say? Shirtle didn't even look up as she spoke, tracing her hoof through the air as if to draw something only she could see. There may be something we have that can be used for that, provided we can find both the parts and get to the door. Great. I know just the mare to see about finding hard-to-find parts. This was the perfect setup for us. Now, just to tell you, the settlement she lives in is about to have a large alicorn problem. Out of the question. We are the Steel Rangers, not a mercenary organization. All the available personnel I already have will be headed to check on Delta Base. She looked up to me and pressed her forehoofs together on the table. I'm sorry. What if the base is already lost? Longbow spoke up again, rubbing her chin lightly. Send in a small advance team ahead of every pony. Backlash can even get them there in a day in advance of the others. They slip in, check it out, and report if the rest are even needed. If it is 42 like the report said, then there won't be any pony else alive to find. Even worse than that, 42 could be waiting there to ambush me. At least with a smaller team, if things did go bad, she wouldn't slaughter the whole of the Manhattan Steel Rangers. That may have worked for you before, but this is way outside of our normal tactics and highly risky. I say wait and breach like protocol has been dictated anyways. The Elder suggested, roused a sigh from Longbow. If it's just a trick that Sherbert is pulling apart of her betrayal, then she'll be expecting normal protocol. Her tone shifted to something I had heard in her voice before, giving off hatred and barely contained excitement. This way, we might catch her off guard, or save others from an ambush. The gears in my head clicked together, helping me to realize why Longbow was pushing so hard for this. If she got there first, she planned on killing Sherbert herself. It wasn't about ambushes or efficiency, or even about saving the wasteland. It was good, old-fashioned revenge. And I won't stand for it. But if it is 42's doing, she'll be inside waiting for us. There's no way I'm going to let a small team get slaughtered for no reason by her, when they could have been had as backup. I caught the burning gaze of Longbow as she shifted herself uneasily. At least she knew to keep from yelling at me until this was over. However unfair she thinks it seems, I will not let her take revenge. What if I offered an alternative for your services? And before you go back to the whole I'm not a mercenary speech, if you help me, I agree to pay you in weapons up front, and to let you keep the orchard once the machine is destroyed. As the Elder took her time to think about it, I was ready to get to my game face on and negotiate. I can agree to those terms. Fruit Cup will give you the details of the parts when you get your supplies. Now, get yourselves top and ready to go. She nodded, catching both Longbow and I off guard. Paladin Longbow, I am assigning you to Star Paladin Maple Syrup Squad as the advanced infiltration team. I was about to object when she continued. But, the moment it looks to be too dangerous to proceed, get out and seal the door. That is an order. Yes, ma'am. Longbow smiled and gave a stiff salute, her words giving away that the order was something she'd never intended to follow. I nodded in thanks to the elder before both Longbow and I trotted out of the war room, heading for the dry dock to meet with the others. We had walked all of a minute through the old labyrinth before Longbow held out her hoof against my chest, pushing me back against the wall. She used her amplified strength to push me up and pin me there. "What the hell was that in there? Did you forget what I told you?" The gears in my head were spinning wildly, trying to push the feeling of bark scraping against my back and the shortness of breath from taking over. I wheezed and kicked my rear hooves again as Longbow continued venting her rage. "We are going to do this my way. We're going to go in there, and I'm finally going to give that bitch what's been coming to her." The world started to tilt and spin as I couldn't breathe. Darkness clouded my vision before Longbow gasped and let me go. I slumped to the floor as I struggled to get any air at all. Reflexively, I coughed hard, sending splotches of red to the floor with each retching hack. My lungs stung and burned, feeling that they were trying to work their way up out of my throat. I was almost worried that I was having another taint mutation, but the pressure let up and I felt myself breathe again. "Backlash, are you alright?" I don't think that was an appropriate question for somebody who just nearly suffocated. She sat down in front of me, holding out a hoof with a shameful expression. "I didn't mean... I'm sorry." "Longbow, I'm fine." I pushed myself up, feeling weak and lightheaded, though I knew that would pass. "But you need to look at yourself. When I met you, it was like you wanted to bring justice to the wasteland. And I thought that it was a foolish idea. But the more time I spent with you, the more I believed that you could do it. Don't lose yourself to this revenge. Not like you did to Bishop." She sank down at the mention of him. She knew that killing Bishop was the only way to bring him to justice. But even she could see that she enjoyed it way too much. Sherwood could still be brought to justice if 42 doesn't kill her. Longbow didn't have to kill her out of revenge. She looked up to me, determination filling her eyes. "I promise I won't." My ears played back her words over and over. Nothing but sincerity and resolve came through. I took a step forward and pulled her into a tight hug, feeling as she wrapped her own hooves around me. "Everything has just happened so fast. I don't want to forget who I am." "I won't let you." I gave her a smile and leaned back. "Now, come on. This detour has taken long enough." After a few more minutes of walking, and far too many flights of stairs later, we re-emerged into the light of the dull gray sky. Maple was striding along nearly a filed line of paladins, barking off instructions with a voice that was beaming with pride. "Congratulations, squad. You've won an all-expenses-paid trip down the highway to Tartarus. I know that field work isn't something we normally get to do aboard the Nautilus, but Elder Strudel needs every pony on deck for this mission." He stopped and looked Fruitcup over, raising his hoof up and pulling it through his mane. "Paladin Fruitcup, your mane is past regulation length. Fix it!" "Fruitcup, belay that order," Longbow called out, causing Maple to trip up mid-stride. "Mane length is only regulated for unicorns without modified helmets. You know that, Maple." Her words turned his coat red in anger. "And don't tell me you outrank me. That's only on mission, not during prep time." "Whoa, Maple, you gonna let her talk to you like that?" A light earth pony stallion spoke up. He was quite lanky-looking, even through his armor. His tan mane fizzed out in every direction, each curling pump of it ending in a dark brown tip. And he had a dark brown mustache that extended into a twisting curl from each side of his muzzle. The one thing, though, that got me was his voice. He was the same stallion who had called up and over the radio over Edie. "Unless you want to be the one to shave their mane, I suggest you all go to the armory and stock up." Maple was pissed. There was no denying it. But he maintained incredible control over the others with his voice. I could see it in the way they all saluted at the same moment. They truly admired him. The thumping and jostling of power armor made my head pound as the group trotted past me and down into the base, leaving me in silence only after the bunker door mercifully swung shut. The fluttering sound of wings announced both Carlotta and Skyline's arrival beside me. Sky immediately took notice of my oozing wound in the back of my head. "Goddesses, are you okay? They didn't do anything bad to you, did they?" She grabbed the sides of my head, pulling it down so she could get a better look at me. "Oh, hopefully it doesn't cause a concussion, whatever it was." "Right. Causing a concussion might disrupt the emptiness inside of his skull that gets us into these situations," Carlotta remarked sarcastically. "Well, whatever situation you got us into sure did the trick. From up there, it looks like the whole base is getting ready for war." "They are." I knocked Skyline's hooves away from me, looking up at the pair. 42 isn't dead. I wasn't sure what kind of reaction I expected from the two of them, but what I didn't expect was complete and utter speechlessness. "The Rangers are mobilizing, because she just took out Sherbert's bunker. Get flying. We'll need to know if 42 is still in the area." "You got it, boss." Carlotta's expression was flat, and every ounce of tone or emotion was just simply gone from her voice. She spread her wings off and took off, launching into the air as Skyline looked at me sadly, giving me a nod before she joined Carlotta. I watched as the two of them took off in the air, listening to the heavy robotic stomps of Edie as she came closer. "Hey there, Chief! We had wondered where you popped off to." Pink seemed just about as happy as ever to see me. I smiled up to her, canting my head as I heard a sharp banging coming from inside of her. "Oh, sorry about that. We forgot you were in there," she shouted before the pneumatic voice of the wireless compartment filled my ears. The curled form of Notepad slipped out into the concrete below with a thump. "Forget about me! I've been banging there for 10 minutes!" He angrily kicked at one of Edie's legs, which was a bad idea, seeing as kicking metal was just a bad idea. "You brought him?" I groaned. I know what Watcher had wanted the guy to get my story, but this wasn't the time. "Look, Notepad, you can't come with us. It's too dangerous." "Hey, I've covered wars, you know." He brushed himself off as he stood up, adjusting his SWAT barding straps. "Just take me with you. I'll stay out of your way. I'll be like I'm not even there." "Fine." I rolled my eyes and face-hoofed. "Only because I have some questions I need you to answer for me. But we aren't going to talk until Futura is safe. Got it?" He nodded. "Good. Now, get back in and let's go." "What? I can't ride with you?" he asked in a pleading tone, trying to keep his eyes from wandering to look at Edie. "There isn't room. I'm transporting 6 power-armored Steel Rangers inside the Marauder. If you don't want to sit inside Edie here, you can take your chances outside the rear frame of the car, with the ground speeding under you at 80 miles per hour through one of the worst sections of the old equestrian highway system." He cringed at the thought of becoming nothing more than a red smear on the ground due to one good pothole. "Or you can sit on top of Edie, exposed and out in the open where nasty things like bullets can get you fairly quickly." I get it. I'd rather get there alive." He shook his head and crouched as Edie lowered down for him. "Just, please, promise me that we'll have time to talk. I got most of your story from the others, but I want to hear it from your perspective." I nodded, which seemed to be good enough for him. "You girls know where the bunker we're heading to is? The best description I can give you is that it's an old quarry about halfway between Ponyville and Red Wing." This was going to be annoying if they didn't know where it was. "A bunker by Queech? Or was it Quail? Or was it a..." The speaker that Pink was using cut out abruptly, the voice of Bit coming over from it. "We know where it is. Even if we didn't, we have your pip buck to follow." "How can you track it, though, without your wireless unit?" which led me to another damn good question. How did I not ask that right off the bat? How did you guys find me here in the first place? Oh, I know! Pink's voice roared through the speaker again. The pink headlight on her side swiveled to look at Bit's headlamp. The purple light gave a quick up and down motion before Pinky continued. 'Cause it's tainted with poison! And that wasn't the answer I was expecting. The casing is made out of a special alloy that, in small amounts, is harmless, but for up to 24 hours leaves a trail of wherever the owner has been through. It was only put into high-ranking officers' gear, just in case they were ever full-napped. I see. So, if it was that rare, why does Edie have a sensor for it? I looked down at the busted casing of my pip-buck, the flaking edges shining in the mid-afternoon light. Oh, heavens no! With a broken casing like that, you're leaving behind a huge trail that even our meager senses could pick up. Pink's voice was just about a bit too enthusiastic that I was soaking in a poisonous chemical that other robots could track. Just another thing I have to worry about. But don't worry, that camel takes years of exposure to kill you, so I'm sure you'll be fine. I feel so much better knowing that it gives everything else in the wasteland that can sense it time to kill me first. Thanks. I walked past Edie, heading towards Longbow as she talked to Maple by the car. Glad I could help you feel better, Chief. See you there. Her bright, oblivious demeanor was a nice change of pace from the last few days. What I wouldn't give to just go back to living without the knowledge of just how fucked up my life had become. As she stomped off ahead of us, I thought to myself that I did appreciate all that both Pink and Bit were doing for me. They had their freedom, and each other. They could have run off and lived their own lives, but instead they chose to help me. I hope I'm worth it. We had made good time as we bounced over the old, worn roadway. The sun was starting to set as we passed the still blazing remains of the pool, and had actually set hours ago as we were closer in on the bunker. I cringed every time we bottomed out from a real pothole due to the fact that we were dangerously weighed down. It worried me that if it starts to rain, we might get so bogged down we'll have to hoof it, and we'll never make it in time to Ventura. Longbow was pressed tightly to my side, leaning into me to avoid sitting too close to Maple. Before we left, Maple had introduced his team. There were the three that I already knew of, the first being Fruit Cup, their Arcanotech expert. The second was Casserole, their forward recon, stealth, and marks pony. The third was Suture, who I was surprised could even fit inside of his armor, and was, as I knew, their combat medic. First of the members I hadn't met was Frosted Cakes. She was their repair and salvage expert, who apparently had a fascination with explosives. Lastly was their radio mare, Doppler. She honestly looked out of place the most amongst them, as her armor sported all sorts of ad hoc antennas that I couldn't even guess what they were for. Funny thing, though, is that the whole time I've seen her, she's been the only one to never remove her helmet. So, what can you tell us about this mare we're supposed to look out for? Maple's helmet speaker cut through the wind without problem as he leaned against the dash so abruptly, I swear I could feel the marauder tilt forward. Right now, we're going in blind, and I don't like that one bit. Look, you don't want to see her. You see her, you're dead. She sees you, you're dead. Why can't I just go back to this morning, back before I knew she was still alive? Just trust me. We go in, look for Sherbert, and we get out of there. That's it. He's right, Maple. This mare has a tendency to just show up in a place you'd never expect. We barely made it out of the East Orchard after she showed up. Longbow's tone was better than at the base, sounding much calmer and level-headed. The only one of us who might have had an advantage here is Doppler, seeing as she might be able to hear her before she strikes. You heard her, Doppler. Helmet off for this mission. Maple called back, rousing a soft sigh from the mare. She lifted her hooves and twisted her helmet off, pulling it off to reveal a midnight black coat, with piercing yellow slit eyes that looked just out of place as her large, frill-tipped ears. I had only seen a few of the bat ponies in my life, but never had I seen an earth pony one. "Aye, sir." I could barely hear her words through the wind as she sank down, avoiding my gaze in the rearview mirror at her, and shying away from every pony in what looked to be a mix of shame and fear. "If I may suggest that I maybe could be stationed outside?" She didn't sound like the other rangers at all, seeming more nervous than all of them combined. I guess she really didn't like going on missions. "My equipment." "We'll be fine. You keep going on that you need redundant antennas for just about, in case one fails anyway. So no, unless there's any reason you can't go in, I'm sorry, but orders are orders." He sounded irritated and droned on in a way like this isn't the first time explaining this. The fact that I hadn't slept yet started to get to me, making me wish I had actually gotten in that nap while we were detained in the base. But as I yawned, the headlights highlighted the faint metallic glint of one of the quarry's old dig machines. The sound of beating wings helped me focus a bit more as Carlotta dipped down through the darkness next to my window. "Pull over. We gotta talk." That was all she said before disappearing. And the way she said it, though, was concerning, her words having a note of hesitation to them. I did as she asked and slowed the Marauder down, stopping us away from the entrance to the quarry. Maple's squad noisily piled out of the car before I had even turned it off, groaning as they stretched their stiff limbs. Both Sky and Carlotta floated over, as the only light around us came from the Rangers' headlamps. 42 is definitely here. She left something outside of the base, and I'm pretty sure she wants you to see it." Skyline spoke as if half asleep, looking more exhausted than I even felt. The whole lot of us followed through the darkness, climbing up the dirt wall around the quarry's edge to peek over. A bright light came from the tunnel that led in, shining almost directly on a colorful-looking wagon that sat in the middle. It was hard to make out with my one good eye, but it looked like it had the crude shape of a gear painted in blood on it. I started to pull myself over to the crest to get to it, but was stopped as Carlotta grabbed me and raked me back. "Come on, Backlash. You know she has to have it rigged up to kill you. If anyone's going down there, it's one of these fools with their fancy-ass armor." She grunted and sat atop of me, making bolts of pain shoot through my side. "Frosty, since you're always the one with the urge to blow yourself up, you're it," Maple called out, tapping her on the back of her helmet. With little hesitation or effort, she had hopped up and galloped down to it, staying a good 10 feet away as she walked around the cart. She stopped and leaned in close to one end, looking over it intently for a few moments. "Sir, it's got writing that says, 'Push me,' on the side of it that's next to what looks to be some sort of release mechanism. Should I activate it?" Her voice boomed through the cold night air, carrying to the distance loud enough that we all cringed. Mabel turned to Longbow and leaned his head up, looking past her to me. "You're the expert on this mare. What will activating it do?" The soulless eyes of his helmet made me uneasy as I tried to think, giving him the only answer I could think that would make sense. "I'm pretty sure it'll explode, but 42 is unpredictable, and honestly, it could do anything." I turned my gaze back down to the cart, my morbid curiosity getting the better of me the longer I looked at it. Whatever it is, she told me she would leave me a calling card to find her by. This has to be it. There was a burning feeling in my chest as I leaned forward, my mouth speaking before my mind. "We need to do it." "All right, Frosty, hit it and get to a minimum safe distance." Mabel spoke just loud enough through his helmet that it got to her, getting a nod before she hoofed the side of the wagon. It jolted and bounced as the rounded top dropped down. A section of streamers and brass horns erected themselves around a glowing box in the center of it. I tried to focus my eye on that glowing box, not quite getting it before Carlotta jumped off me and jet past the galloping frosted cakes. "It's Pallet!" Sky shouted as she too jumped up. about to take off before Maple hooked a hoof around her. "Let me go! I can help!" I looked down to the cart, seeing Carlotta tug and pull at the covering on the box. A filly-sized object was moving around inside of it. 42 surprised me by not lying about Pallet. But to do this, I knocked my head painfully to the side with a hoof to get back on task as Skyline kicked and hit at Maple with a futile attempt to break free. "You know it could explode," Maple growled through his helmet. "Losing 2 members is not worth the risk." There was a loud crackle from the box that sounded familiar to the start of an audio log. "Hey there, Backlash! Consider this the calling card that we talked about. You'll find that I already took care of the whole Megaspelling the Waste problem. I even left her alive, too, just because I know how much you love murdering innocent ponies. Funny thing is, I keep doing you all these favors, but you never seem to understand that giving is a two-way street. So I'll be waiting at the Buckling Bridge for the ultimate showdown. Bring your friends. I'll bring mine. Don't forget to bring me my pond either. It's the only way I'll spare your precious wasteland now. Oh, and before I go, one last thing. You have until the end of the song to save the last living resident of Ponyville. Good luck!" Her voice cut out as Carlotta tugged with all her strength at the box in the center, slowly bending the covering off it with her bare talons. The flags and tubes on the box started to weave around as a quick, upbeat song played through them. "Carlotta, come on!" I screamed out to her, unsure if she could hear me over the song. She was definitely making progress at ripping it off, but I was unsure if she would be fast enough. I have no idea how long this song might last. With one final tug, the mountings for the covering sheared off as she tossed it down, scooping up Pallet and turning around in one fluid moment. She took off. The song came to an end, hanging for a moment before a loud ding played. The blast wasn't more than one would have expected from a rocket, but the whole cart disintegrated into a high-speed shrapnel, bouncing off the helmets of a few rangers and thankfully missing Skyline and I. Carlotta's shredded form dipped out into the air and slammed into the dirt a few feet from us, laying there unmoving as streaks of red dripped down the slope. "No!" Skyline tore herself from Maple and dashed over to Carlotta, as all I could think of was that I had just got another one of my friends killed. Skyline sobbed loudly as she turned Carlotta over, pulling both her and Pallet close. It was then that I could hear Pallet's sobs joining in, sounding weak, but at least she was alive. Suture galloped up, pulling out a super restoration potion from the medical tin built into his armor. He pushed Skyline away forcefully, moving Pallet and turning Carlotta over before pouring the liquid over a gaping bodily wounds. Through my tearing eye, I could see the wounds closing up, forming bright new scars on her back. Carlotta gasped and clawed at the dirt as she locked up in pain, flaring her tattered wings out reflexively. I rose to my hooves with a smile and screamed out into the night. "That's right, 42! You didn't fucking win!" My outburst made the others look at me like I was crazy, but I stopped caring when the gears in my head spun out something I needed to take into consideration. I ruined her plans for East Orchard. I ruined her plans for the pool. And even now, a challenge like this means that she's afraid of me to stop her. If she is that desperate, then we can do this. If she wants one final fight at the Buckland Bridge, then after we save Futura, I'll bring the full might of the wasteland to bear upon her. It doesn't matter if it's a trap, or if she wants to surprise me with something there. Nothing short of a mega spell is going to stop me from finally taking her down. Level up, plus 15 barter. New perk, Monstrous Charm. You look like a walking train wreck. Every pony hates to see you, but can't help but keep on looking. Your intimidation gains an additional 15 points to barter, but you also now have a -1 to your charisma.